Once upon a time, there was a Chinese farmer whose horse ran away. That evening, all of his neighbors came around to commiserate. They said, "We are so sorry to hear your horse has run away. This is most unfortunate." The farmer said, "Maybe." The next day, the horse came back, bringing 7 wild horses with it. And in the evening, everybody came back and said, "Oh, isn't that lucky? What a great turn of events. You now have 8 horses." The farmer again said, "Maybe." The following day, his son tried to break one of the horses, and while riding it, he was thrown and broke his leg. The neighbors then said, "Oh dear, that's too bad." And the farmer responded, "Maybe." The next day, the conscription officer came around to conscript people into the army, and they rejected his son because he had a broken leg. Again, all the neighbors came around and said, "Isn't that great?" Again, he said, "Maybe." The whole process of nature, okay, it keeps going.
Hello. So it's hard to do communion without other people. So I'm basically just doing some work on the side until someone wants to interact. I guess I could share some links in the Discord stuff. There we go. Oh. All right. Broken Clock Tower, Town Square. Argopologia. Promo self. Let's see. I could do others. We'll leave it there. So I'm doing a monthly report thing. We have instrumentation, and there are queries. You can query the data, and it allows you to ask questions and answer questions. And then I created some automation to run those queries and generate reports, and I'm just manually transferring some things until someone else hops in. I guess this communion thing, people use this word communion like it's when you eat the bread and drink the wine. And the communion I'm familiar with is when we practice trying to be in relationship with God and also try to be in relationship with other people. And then we have our minds interacting, the mind of God and our minds interacting together. And so we avoid doing this thinking for ourselves thing by doing the communion. So that's my understanding. That's my kind of definition. I guess I could play something. There's other people with content. I think Christian Baxter just released something interesting. Hey, let's play some Hezi. I haven't listened to this yet, but it's always good. And present, share screen. Here we go. Divine Fire, share. And we'll get a live response. Divine Fire. I have not watched this yet. So this is the young Levite.
Hello, all. I hope everyone had or is having a productive week. We are continuing with our weekly portion review, and this week we are in the portion of Vayakhel, which means to convene. Kahal is also a crowd, group. So Moses convenes the people of Israel. We are still in the midst of the assembly of the tabernacle. However, I want to focus on something more specific. At the beginning of the portion, there's a very short passage about the prohibition of performing work on the Sabbath, specifically the prohibition of lighting a fire. In Exodus 35:3, we're told, "You shall not kindle a fire in your dwelling places on the Sabbath day." We should note that this is the only one of the 39 categories of labor that are associated with the tabernacle that is explicitly mentioned in the context of the Sabbath law in the Torah. Now, we should ask, why the focus on fire? So fire stands famously at the foundation of human culture. It's also the catalyst to many of the technological developments that we've had. And it's interesting to see how different cultures relate to the fact that humans could control fire. So in Greek mythology, we of course know Prometheus. He appears as one who steals fire from the gods and gives it to the humans, which means mythology sees the act of humans, sees this act of humans having fire as a competition with the gods and a sin against them. In the context of the modern technological advancements, humans feel subconsciously a guilt of playing God through their innovations, and we fear the repercussions of our own hubris. And we see this, of course, in many, many movies, and this is very apropos with regard to the advancements of AI, of course. However, in Judaism, we have a different attitude towards fire, which is very different. The Midrash tells us a fascinating story about Adam, who is sitting in the darkness on Saturday night, and he starts crying because he thinks that with the arrival of darkness, the world is returning back to chaos, back to tohu vavohu. Suddenly, God extends him two stones and tells him to rub them together, and from them, fire emerges. Now, from this midrash, we learn two very interesting points. One is that we see a sympathy between God and man, between the creator and the created, and he's interested in the success of man. Secondly, we see that God is not giving us a burning torch, like the story of Prometheus, but rather he's giving us two stones, but he wants us to produce a fire with our own efforts. And in this way, we also see a partnership with God himself. Now, we could see that both in the temple and on Sabbath, there's a call for a partnership between man and God, not a competition with him. Now, this principle is also revealed to us through the expression in the text itself, in its portion, as the Lord commanded Moses. Now, if we pay attention, this expression repeats itself 18 times in this week and next week's portion. In contrast, in the description of the creation of the world, the expression "and God said" appears 9 times. Now, we could see a reason for this could be found in the fact that the creation of the world, it was God alone who's acting. Rather, and in the creation of the tabernacle, man finally becomes a partner in the act of creation, as if there were 9 divine expressions and 9 human expressions altogether. As we slowly start to harness the powers of creation, we should be reminded to do so with humility and in service for a higher good. We should acknowledge our responsibilities not only to ourselves, but to the world and, of course, to God himself. And we should cultivate that relationship internally, externally with our community, with our family, and help them all orient themselves towards a more robust relationship with God. We are here to create with him. We are here to enjoy and cultivate this world with him. I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom and take care.
Hey, Luke Thompson is listening. Hey, guy. Hey, Luke. If you end up being available, you're more than welcome to hop in. Yeah, what Hazy just said there was very good. The one thing, I think the tricky part there is being able to receive the guidance about what God's will is. That's the really tricky part, because we can go to uh, we can go try and read the words from people who are dead, who are no longer there to correct us, and we're not available maybe to correct them, or bring that knowledge into the moment, which is unique and emergent. So that's the tricky part, is trying to be in communion with God. But I think it's important to remember that God can work through us, and I'm not even sure how much uh, God will work without us. Right? It's like we get to participate and dance, and so I think there's a kind of mistake people can make where we just assume that it's someone else owns that, someone else is responsible for it, and um, we can just allow someone else to do the work. So, yeah, I think it's important to. Oh, Hezi already did it. I guess I can delete it. Oops. Hezi already got the takeaways there. All right. Chad, present and listening as well. Yeah, I don't know how long it will be until Chad enters back into the live streams. I kind of miss them. I know that he's more motivated to do these. It seems like he's producing more with the conversation with people, and those are lovely. Um, but providing a space here where we can interact, you know, in this way, that it's something important as well. So Chad is missed, but I'm sure he'll be back in these live streams soon at some point. All right, I guess I can keep trying to play content from other people if no one else is hopping in. But what's interesting about this putting forth effort is it's like we all have different strengths and weaknesses, and insights and blind spots. And what's interesting is that with our strengths, we can hit a plateau, and there's not a lot of room for improvement. But it's in noticing our weaknesses and being able to practice handling carefully our weaknesses and our blind spots. That's where we can see the most growth. And it's like, it just seems to me like there's a lot of ripeness in each person and in the communities we're part of to practice developing our capacity to deal with our own blind spots and our own weaknesses, which means like you'll be able to see massive gains. So like if I go to these young children, coaching them soccer, I can I can see a lot of gains within like one day. So yeah, I think I see a lot of potential for us to do good stuff. Let's see, Chad just put something out earlier, and it's it seems like it's ripe. It's ripe for us to put in the effort to develop the skill of dealing with our blind spots and our. Hello, sir. I want the. He's not going to direct me.
Not yet. No, not yet.
Oh, he is directing me. Sorry about that. I have to wait for the cues, for the sign, the uplifting. There he is.
But why don't you switch to the intimate mode? There's so much of this going on where everybody's using up all that screen for mimetic mind-controlled backgrounds, Chad.
We are in an intimacy crisis.
Mm.
This is way more intimate. I feel so much closer.
Yeah, and
The
it
point is
highlights
communion.
how far you are from the top of the screen on your camera setting there.
I can get it. What do you want me to do?
Did you give us the proper theme song opening? I wasn't here for the front. You were playing Jesse by the time I showed up.
I mean, I did the Sapatudi intro, self-appointed president of the Useful Terminal Idiots, and then I did the Chinese farmer thing. That was a nice present, a nice gift.
You see the new one from Ups?
Yeah, I don't have that one uploaded. I could upload it.
I ran it yesterday on the stream. It was great.
I saw that. So catch me up, sir. Catch me up. How's life?
I went to an Orthodox service.
Was this the first time?
Yeah. He solved the meaning crisis right there. He said the purpose of humans is to have communion with God. There you go. There's your meaning crisis. Get to it.
It's like the baseball player who knocks the ball out of the park. That was it. And then drops the bat and walks up.
And the mic back up instead of a mic drop.
Yeah. And then we just have to keep saying it in different ways. And so it was received well. You received it well.
You got to wait until everybody's, comfortable. I mean, you can't open with that. I got too many issues with the word God. Can we not do that? So you got to lull them to sleep with talk about symbolism and fancy vervaky words to put them under. And then you're like, bam, go have communion with God.
It's like entering into the hypnotic trance state. And so there can be this mesmerism, and then you're ready. You've been prepared.
If you haven't made your sins being destroyed, then that's what you get.
Here we go. Chad says, "Hey man, I like playing with the toys I pay for him." Chad calls it the lake song.
Oh, good. Sartori is going to come on.
Oh yeah.
He goes to church.
I dropped him a message this morning. I was like, I haven't heard from this guy in a while. So I went to his channel. I'm like, what's your last video? And I went and looked, did I make a comment on your last video? And I didn't. So I just kind of waved at him with a comment. I was like, hey.
He showed up at the stream yesterday.
That's great. Here we go. Now it gets really intimate.
There he is.
Hello.
Oh, he's so superior to us. Look at he's way up there. Way up here.
He'll have to condescend. Get it?
Hey, it has been. Thanks, Mike.
You guys are superior to me. I haven't put out a video in 2 weeks, so I've been struggling to maintain people's awareness of my existence in the space.
Go ahead and be huge. You're too quiet back there.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. I mean, I was hearing you, but it was quiet.
Yeah, so I'm trying to maintain people's awareness of my existence.
Good.
I'm glad you're still here, man.
Your church ever fix the sound on those streams?
I don't know. I mean, I know sometimes it's like, oh, there's just no live stream, so probably not.
Oh, it was cool for a minute there. It was like, oh, the church mic goes to streaming, and then I try to go, and it was like I can't hear anything.
I'll have to make them more aware of that so they can know that they're losing valuable.
I could have converted to Jesusism, but no, their sound was messed up. No.
So you went to the Orthodox service, and now did you feel like you were coming home? Was it everything that everybody else gushes over?
No, it wasn't that. But in case you don't know what reverence looks like, you should probably check it out. There, if you need a real world example,
some taste of reverence.
Yeah. It's like if you compare, say, a Baptist place to that, it's like one is we treat God like our friend, and one is like we treat God like he's God. So that's the key difference, I would say.
That's an interesting topic. It's like I think Chad spoke with a guy at Charlie's Little Corner, and there's a part that I caught where it's like he had some kind of encounter with it's like, and he was told like, no, if I were God, you you wouldn't be able to handle this. It's like God in all God's glory is just a little too much, and so we need some kind of representative.
But it's like the easy metaphor for that is staring at the sun. Right?
I've done it.
You're not supposed to look at it during an eclipse, like on April 4th in Bosque Del, Illinois, where something might happen.
I've tried to drop hints that we could do a family trip in that direction. Maybe drop into Kansas City or somewhere. I don't know. Do the International House of Not Pancakes.
There's Waffle Houses all over the country. I saw that on my drive.
There's some deliverance ministry out there that I'm curious if I went in there if they'd like extract something from me. So
all right, welcome Luke. He just showed up. I'm leaving, guys.
Thanks, Grim Grizz.
Because I showed up, Grim?
You can you can carry the load, I guess now.
It's brutal.
Now you can look at it in two different ways, Luke.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I look at it in the needy, it's all about me, will you please love me way. That's the way I look at it. Usually. That's my default.
Luke, I was almost gonna jump in yesterday, but I got there pretty much right close to the end. But I wanted to let you know that I also had the unfulfilled longing for a Teddy Ruxpin when I was a child. So I felt your.
Oh man, it's funny because I asked. I just thought Cal, my friend Cal, would appreciate that live stream, so I listened to it, and he sent me a message that he was just like, holy shit, man. He's like, that like wrecked me when I told that story about my dad. And what's so funny is like it's even that though is very appropriate to like the broader topic, or one of the broader topics I was trying to talk about in the live stream is that it's everything is a gift if it's received as a gift. And I think that in that moment, as that little boy, I did not receive that as a gift. I can guarantee you that. But now, this is kind of like the linear progression of time. Retroactively, this retroactive causality, it was a gift. I see it as a gift. I mean, I currently experience it as a gift.
The part I caught about that through the AI and everything was that you couldn't the Teddy was not affordable or something.
I think it wasn't even that. I mean, that's like that's the practical way to look at it. I mean, I'm pretty sure my grandparents bought it for me, so it wasn't that. It's more that my dad he was trying to teach me in his very, very hard masculine way, which is often one of the roles of the father, with rough and tumble play or anything. Life is hard, my family and I took a vacation once. It's like our first family vacation. And we went to where I guess in North Carolina and those beaches, where there's wild horses and stuff. And there's this iconic thing that it struck me and my wife both. There's these two horses. It was like a father and son riding side by side. And the father just kept like biting the hell out of the son's neck. It was just like, he was mean, like super mean as they were running along, almost to the point where I wanted to like go and like knock him off of the horse. But like it's a version of, you can look at the severity of a father And whether or not it's well intended and he has the purest of motivations, and whether or not he's doing his own selfishness and lashing out and whatever, but like it really is a gift if you receive it as a gift. And my dad, I think, was just trying to teach me that like things don't come easy. You got to work for things. You got to work hard. There's errors on all sorts of sides, and there isn't a perfect right choice.
And there's even good and the not good.
Yes, totally.
Yeah, I think, I'm thinking about it because, I've definitely been on the, like, on the side now of, like, we had financial struggles or whatever when I was growing up. My parents weren't well-to-do, but they still did a good job trying to provide us with, like, they would go out of their way to try to make like Christmas and birthdays and things like that special. But it would be like to the extent of like, okay, you're not going to get like every toy in the catalog or whatever, but like, like if you circle one or two of those big things, like you might just get one. You never, like, you should do it because you might. And now it's like the position where I'm in with my wife and our kids, and I'm like, we're spoiling these kids. We're like, we got to give them like, but just thinking about it now, because and it's funny because it's like I never thought about, like, I don't even know if I ever asked for a Teddy Ruxpin or whatever. It's like, really, I'm like, that is a sad toy, because you were like, the kid that's wanting that is like, that would be the friend that understands me, the friend that never judges me, and like, I think, ultimately, maybe it's good, like, when we give our kids these things, if we could do it in the right way, because it's like training them to see through the ruse of idolatry, because you think this gift is going to be the thing that satisfies the deep longings of your heart, and inevitably they all disappoint. But if you're in the position where you never get the thing, then that can carry you farther, maybe in a bad way, I think, because you see those people that are always trying to like make up for whatever they didn't have, and so maybe like it probably is a lot of on the part of the parents in the way that they give a gift. Because if you give your child a gift and being like, this thing is nothing, but I give it to you because I love you, and then when the child realizes, oh, it wasn't the thing that made me happy, it was my parents love me and they give me a gift that makes me happy, then that pattern repeated through time will hopefully get them to get the right lesson.
I hear the dangers of overprotecting, right? And some dangers of underprotecting. There's some kind of a missing the mark, and potentially missing the mark either way. And then we also live in a world where maybe it's even there's laws that, for example, say you can't drink alcohol until you're 21 years old. And it's like my buddy from Macedonia, I asked him, I said, well, how did y'all deal with alcohol, growing up? And it's like there's this slow introduction to it, such that you don't end up with these stories that I'm aware of where the child goes off to college and has no experience with alcohol at all. So that's what came to mind as you're talking about Teddy.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many cultural components to that. Like, I talk to my son about that stuff because I'm big on, I have a more nuanced view on it, but like decriminalization of drugs and things. But the problem is like the American culture is just unwell. Like, you can do that in some places like Portugal and it's fine. Like, crime rates go down, everything's good. You do it at some places in America, it's going to be a flipping disaster.
It's dangerous.
We're not capable of handling it because it's this point of maturity. It's kind of like what I was talking about. You like win the lottery, and is that a blessing or a curse? For most people that are playing the lottery, that win the lottery, even if you look at it, the statistics of what has happened with people that win the lottery, it's not a blessing. it like ruins their lives. They end up worse than before they won the lottery.
Maybe that's a blessing too, though. It ruins you, and at some point you can say, "Thank God it ruined me."
Dude, for me, it is. I mean, and that's part of my bigger view is that like whatever needs to be burnt off will. The chaff's going to be burnt off.
It's going to hurt.
Oh, right. Absolutely. But I'm gonna listen in, guys. We'll see you. I just want to pop in and say
there you go. Listen to this, Luke. So I think I was ruminating on kind of his live stream or whatever, and you know, and Peterson has been making this case, right? Like when he was there, I shared he had a conversation with a guy from Catholic Channel who was talking about the miracle that Tammy experienced, right? And then they kind of got into the Catholic Church, and he was talking about, you know, this whole rush down to relevance and everything else. And he's like, no, it's the message is pick up your cross and die. Like the central Christian message is this sense of sacrifice, and the things are going to be hard. Like you will be this is not an invitation into rainbows and butterflies, you know? And so I think about that as a father, right?
Effort is required and there will be pain.
100%. And you know, so part of this deep sense, and you know, I was extremely lax on certain things with my boys, but I was extremely difficult on them. And I picked up on one thing that Hezi said, and I dropped off because I felt it was a better conversation. Plus, I just jumped in for a little time at work. I had some time, but he had mentioned stuff like things are different now, and like kids at 24 can't handle things. And we've decided to do that to our kids. I promise you, there are kids on farms in America that are driving trucks and are working and have the sense, like what Luke grew up there, can handle things. People were getting married and having families and working hard and sacrificing. We've just raised a generation of pampered participation trophies, protecting themselves kids. Like that's on us.
It's even baked into the laws that say, oh, you need to be 16 years old to drive or 21 years old to drink. And it's like there are situations where it's nice to allow your 7 or 8 year old to drive. Like this, they can do it. But we created a law because we're scared or we want to protect people, you know. So I get it.
Yeah, kids can do so much more. I mean, kids can do so much more. I mean, kids have a great. The other thing you find out if you're a parent, you realize that your kids are actually pretty smart, pretty early. Like they ask amazingly deep and great questions, like the sort of stuff you're like, damn, I don't know how to answer that, you know, because you don't. Like it's like that's a hard question.
I love my favorite response is that's a good question. I like that question.
Yeah,
because I'm still asking myself that question.
You know, encourage that. So, no, I think that is important. And I heard, you know, Luke was talking about his dad and everything else, and you know, the motives can be different, but I think what his dad had is this deep sense, and I experienced this as a dad, which is like, I'm trying to prepare. Like I've mentioned this. I'm trying to produce men. My job as a dad is to produce a man because things are going to get hard. Your spouse may die on you on a Tuesday morning, and when you least expect it, right? You may get laid off from that job and have to try and figure out some way that you're going to do this, right? The illnesses, the things that you're going to have to go through are extremely difficult. And no one, I don't care if, you know, certain socioeconomic, a certain amount of money can protect you from certain things to some extent, but not really, right? And so, but I think, but again, we look at it like I've always had this sense, and I shared it, which is it's just so obvious to me when you read the scriptures. You know, it's not an either or, it's a both and. But Jesus is preparing you, hey, this way, which is really the way of life, like this way is going to be really hard. It's going to be hard if you want to do it in a let's just say a beatific way, right? Which is to have some sense of integrity, love about you, like loving your enemies. Man, are you kidding me? Come on, Jesus. I got to love my enemies. Like I got to pray for those people who persecute me. Like that's the status of my heart. Like that's the way I'm supposed to respond to people, places, and things, right? Bless those who persecute you. Come on, that is such a hard internal job to have that sort of. But we have seen people who live that, right? So when you come into the presence of somebody who really has that, and I'm sure we all run into that in our life, it's staggering, and you notice it. You know what I mean? And hopefully you're trying to, like I always said, I'd always hoped I wanted to raise hard men with soft hearts.
Yep.
I don't know how much we control these hearts, though.
We don't. No. See, the job is, and here's the other thing. Like once I've mentioned this, and I've done, and I've had, and I looked into of the prodigal son. Like, son comes up, tells dad, "You're dead to me. I want my money now." Dad doesn't even try and say that's unwise. I'm not going to do that. You're going to blow it on sex and drugs and rock and roll, and I'm not going to. No, he says, "Okay, fine." He gives him up to the thing that he knows is going to take him to the point of destruction. At the core of his being, he lets him go do that. And then as soon as he comes back, he doesn't even have to grovel with the father. Like, he doesn't have to grovel. The son doesn't even have to ask for forgiveness. Father sees him and runs out, and it's good. That's a wild way. Like, that's what I've tried to put my prism of being a father through that. And by the way, I say all this, but then I put myself through that prism and I see all the ways I failed. Like, I'm not sitting here like I'm father of the year. That's not it. But I did catch on to some of those things and have tried to live some more of those things. And so right now my kids are in their 20s, right? So basically I'm like, hey, you got to go live your own life. Like, I'm like, you want to do this thing that's going to like take you into utter destruction? Then I guess you need to go learn that lesson.
Yeah. I went climbing yesterday, and there were route setters in the climbing gym. And I was thinking about how there's all these difficulties of routes. And, I climb at a certain difficulty, and my children climb at a certain difficulty, and others. And it's like, and then there can be a cheering and encouraging no matter what difficulty you're on that you're doing. And the route setter, the role of the route setter is very interesting to me, like, because we're all on these paths. We have a creator, and we have these paths, and there's routes being set. And I don't know, it's a really interesting topic. I think it ties directly into parenting and at multiple levels. So I just want to toss that in there. It's challenging. I think you can make mistakes, though. I think you can create some routes that are better than other routes for the person. And I guess you have to know the person.
Yeah, it's definitely, there's definitely that thing of there's what you try to do intentionally. There's like a certain positive aspect of it that probably will be successful, and then there's a certain aspect of it that's gonna like almost guaranteed to backfire, or I guess you got to say, like, I'm thinking like as a parent, like if as a parent I'm trying to transmit my experience and my knowledge and wisdom to my kids in the best way so that they can learn the lessons fully, but without suffering, debilitating, permanent damage as regard, as a consequence. But it's kind of a thing where some of the lessons that I'm going to be like, this is what's important, they're going to be like, yes, okay, thank you, Dad. And then other ones, they're going to be like, nah, I don't know. But it's like, I have no way of knowing which ones are going to be which for them. And so, so that's where, I think it kind of comes back to that thing of like idolatry, because you could make an idol out of, like, it's like the parents that make the idol out of like, this is the one area I really don't want you to mess up in. That's probably the area where your kids are going to be most likely to mess up in, like, whatever you focus on in that way. And, or the thing where you're not willing to let them learn their mistakes, like in the little steps or the little increments, that's where they're going to go overboard. So yeah, it's tough. I mean, yeah.
And I think the way to model that. So, for example, there has not been There has not been a male on my dad's side of the family that has not been an alcoholic. I'm just tracing it back through the generations. Now, mine is lucky. My dad got sober on my 13th birthday, and he had this little talk with me before I went off to college or whatever. He's like, "Hey, you don't ever have to experience this. Like it's your choice. It's your choice now. Like you have all this potential and you have all these accolades coming out. You have everything to do. You don't have to do this because chances are you probably have this thing that runs in our family." Now, I was smarter than that. I was going to be smarter than that. I was never going to get so far down the road that would take me. Yeah, good luck, right? That really worked out well for me. So I had a conversation with my boys and I said, "Hey, you're going to have to do what you need to do, but I'm going to share the same thing and share with you. It appears that we have this thing that as soon as we start ingesting alcoholic drugs or alcohol or anything like that, that it takes us to the depths. And so you don't have to do that. But what I did say is like, and I'm in recovery and other things, but if you do choose to do that and it gets really bad and awful, and you start doing this and that, just showing them some signs, I'm like, there's a place you can go." And I pointed them to the meetings, and I'm like, there's an answer. So if you find yourself there in the pit, and I'm trying to live the answer, right? So it was this sense of, I tried to warn, but I also know that is an individual decision. And the arrogance of a 20-year-old young man, you just don't think there's no way this thing's going to get you, So if you have to do it, and that's where I talk about. So that's that specific thing, which I know is death and destruction in my family for men. I've communicated about that very clearly. Now they've gone on and make their own decisions about that. So now it's just up to them. Like I don't ever say, "Hey, you shouldn't be doing this," or "You gotta be careful with that drinking" or anything. No, I don't know, because it may not they may not have that sense. But it's that sense of letting them know about it, but also then it's like, I just have enough. Well, I don't know. Like they're gonna have to live their own path. But here's the thing: I also know many people have found themselves into the depths of their relationship with God because they went down into that pit and they hit that place where they had to have that utter dependence, and they needed something, and they weren't going to be able to do it on their own. So, in a scary way, or in a way that I have enough trust, is like, well, if they're going to do it, I hope they hit a bottom, and I hope they hit it hard, and I hope they don't kill themselves or someone in the midst of it, and I hope they don't bring a family in the middle of it. But at that point, it's like, well, I hope you hit it, and I hope you hit it hard, because then maybe you'll, be able to come back up.
Yeah, making the best out of those costly mistakes. Like, they're costly, but because they're costly, there's a lot of value in them if you capitalize on it the right way. Yeah, that's interesting, because I think about like on both sides of my family, both my parents' families, there was definitely like some alcohol abuse issues. Not like I would say, like, maybe on my dad's side, it was not like my grandfather was not an alcoholic, but he didn't handle it well. And on my mom's side, it was definitely more so. But they just kind of figured in a place where it was like, oh, here's a thing, like we'll have this drink at certain times, family gatherings or something, a glass of wine, a beer or whatever, and basically just treated it like it was nothing. And it was like, you want to have a sip? And I'm like, oh, okay, that kind of tastes gross, whatever. And I was like, it was nothing. And then I ended up going to the church I ended up working at for a long time. Assemblies of God, pretty like teetotaler anyway, but the pastor's mother-in-law and his wife, both his wife's parents, were very involved in the church. Like, she had grown up with like a super alcoholic father, and just the like culture of the church was basically like, alcohol is evil, to touch it is evil, and that became like the message of the thing. And of course, for me, it was confusing. It's like, what? Why? I don't get it. What's the big deal? But then, like, to see how some of the other people would deal with it or whatever, or if they were going to flirt with rebellion in any way, they would go over the, into like substance abuse, and they would go at it like hard. And it was because it was like, it was almost like its power was elevated in the way that that it was discussed. And I think similar way, like a lot of churches, like the way they talk about things like pornography, where it's like, you got to stay away from it because it's awesome. Like that's what nobody will say, but like that's kind of the or like as a teenage, like especially like as a teenage boy or whatever, like the way you're hearing it, and it's like, I think, if you do that, then you're like giving this thing, which and these are like spirits in our culture and stuff. You're giving them so much power, and then because you'll have people that have to live in a way where they're like, I have to make sure that like guarding my eyes all the time, and I can't go to certain places if I might see certain things, and I think that the thing is that like if we're being like Jesus, and it's like, I can't say I'm all the way there, like, because the allure of those things is still, it's like, and then maybe it's the same thing, like, you can't go and hang out in bars, Lance. Like that's not going to be your jam, So it's like, yeah, I do have some caution, but as I encounter the things on the periphery, my goal is to see like what, like, and it's easier, obviously, like having become a father and a husband, especially a father of girls, like just to see like there is a way that we should look at this, and it's with sorrow, and it's with sadness, and not, and then that kind of takes that power away, because then it's like, why are you selling yourself so short? Why are you because when that's the mindset that everybody has towards it, where's going to be the allure for women to pursue those things? Because right now, that's like, for beautiful young women, there's that short window where it's like you can get a lot of attention and money and all the things that you want if you go down this route, and we contribute to that lie whenever we elevate its power beyond how God sees it, I guess you could say.
And I think what ties in here, I think the power is like, so what I think when we talk about these things, I think what's more powerful is to tell our stories, right? And one of the things I tried to do with my boys is explain, hey, this is what happened to me. Like, so this is what it did. And sadly, like they got to experience my alcoholism, right? So I could say, hey, you know that thing that hurt you or whatever, or I was absent or this, that, or the other. Well, this is what was going on. Like that's not me, and now you've seen me the other way, right? So these are the sorts of things, and I would explain, yeah, I had some of the most, I mean, I'm gonna admit, like I had some of the most amazingly fun nights of my life. Was like I didn't hide, right? And it's not that sin isn't fun; it's just that the price is, well, you won't pay it. Like you're never going to get away from not paying the price. And then I would explain the consequences, right, and the difference and what it felt like. So I think like when we tell our stories around certain things, and then again, if you spent any time with men in a very honest, like we did a men's house church group in my friend's garage, and so it was, and I would bring a 12-step approach to that, where I'd really get vulnerable with things. You will find what the biggest struggle that men have is pornography. Like men, it's not young boys sitting in their rooms or whatever. It's men who are struggling, and they know it, right? And some of them, it's destroyed marriages. Like it's literally, and they've lost everything the same way a drug can do that thing. And so when you hear those stories and you share, so I think one of the powerful things we have, not just amongst ourselves, is to realize being honest with our age appropriate, right? But you can be a lot more honest with your kids at a certain age and just tell them, hey, this is what happened. Because what will happen is they'll see stories. You can map yourself onto the story. And I've tried to at least give them those tells and those points of when I had gone too far and where it had been a problem for me and then what it led to. So then they experience that. I'm hoping I've planted a seed that if that story starts to become their story, that they can see it, right? And then maybe they don't have to go, because bottoms, people can have different bottoms. Like you can hit the bottom and keep on digging, by the way. you don't have to, it can get worse. So I think like when we share our stories here, people hear those in a lot of context. And so around this whole, I think TLC, a lot of it, the story is a massive part of this, but I think it goes all the way down to the individual. I think as we share our stories, people can hear that. Maybe want something we have, and hey, how'd you do this? Right? Hey, so this is how I did this thing. And I think it's ultimately what you need to try and do with your kids too. So
yeah.
Hey guys, I need to head off to a meeting. I saw you in here, Gavin. I'm sorry, you hit a hot button issue for me, and I just had to jump in.
Can you? Well, exactly. Before you leave, can you name it? The hot button issue.
Pardon me. It got around fatherhood, and then talking about some of those difficulties, and when Luke got emotional, he was thinking about his son and everything else, and that was carrying over to this. And I think it was that.
Good. Well, thank you, Lance. Thank you for joining.
Good to talk to you.
All right, girl dad. You okay with this headline I put on there?
Yeah, sure, whatever. It's a pretty important identifier in my life now, I would say. So
that's what I caught when you said it. I was like, oh, this is part of your identity.
Yeah.
Your God-given identity. You didn't choose girls?
No. It was definitely, yeah. I mean, that is one of those things, because like I always felt bad, like, because people would be like, oh, what are you hoping for, or whatever. And I would just like, I don't know. It's like, why would I, if I have a hope, won't I be disappointed if I don't get it? So it's like, I'm okay. That's a God decision. That's up to him. So I'm happy with whatever. I just would say, like, I guess, I could think of more like fun things before becoming a father, like fun things that I would want to do with the son, because I'm a boy, and that's, I like boy things or whatever. But it was actually really kind of relieving in a way, because it was like, oh, I didn't feel like, I didn't worry so much about the, like, am I going to shape this person to be like the little mini version of me? Not exactly, because it's a girl. So it's like, it kind of maybe took a little bit of the pressure off now. We're thinking maybe we might have one more. I think, now maybe if it was, I don't know. I was thinking recently, I was like, well, yeah, if we had another girl, whatever, that'd be great. But if we had a boy now, I'd be a little bit more, hopefully prepared for it. But yeah.
I think I had fear. It was because I was raised just all guys. My mom died before I was 3, and I was just like these females are scary. Like, even like in like middle school when there was dances and stuff, I could never ask a girl to dance. Like, so I just always had a fear of the girls, of the females. So that's really what mine came down to.
Yeah, and it's funny too. It's funny because, like, whatever. It'll be like, oh, we're going to watch a Disney movie. Like, let's watch Cars. Let's watch Cars and see how that goes. Like, maybe, like, if this is the thing we'll watch on a regular basis or whatever, like, how will that affect things? And it's like, nope, it's in the DNA. Princesses. We want princesses. This movie doesn't have enough princesses in it. It's like, okay.
It's so funny because I would hear claims, from people who say that, oh, it's the environment. They think it's like all environment. And so, and then, and my wife, she's not a big fan of princesses and pink and this kind of stuff. But then all of a sudden we end up with these girls, and it's like we're kind of intentionally trying to just like keep things kind of away from princesses and pink. And they just love it.
It's funny because I always like the same thing. I remember in my parents' generation talking about how, like, they tried to not give, like, my brother and I, like, toy guns and stuff, and then it was just like we would just find sticks, and it's like, that's a gun, that's a sword.
That's what we used. My dad would break the guns, the toy guns. We could not. You don't point a weapon at anyone unless you're ready to use it, and that included toy guns. And so we found sticks to play war.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Bang, I got you. It's like that's the way it was. It was fun.
Yeah.
Hey, this communion thing, like, do you like? Are there times when you feel like you're closer to God than other times, and then like as you interact with different people, do you have like this feeling?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I don't know. I remember like hearing a really good quote that I'd heard early on in like my like ministry training or whatever, but after high school or whatever, it was loneliness is God's cry for loneliness is like the heart's cry for intimacy with God or something like that, or something like so that like when you have a feeling, because feelings are not what tell us, they're not what define what's real or whatever, but they help us to uh, they're
Do they?
indicators. They
Do they?
indicate what's going on. They indicate the needs or the status of
Yeah.
things. And so that's to say that like when you're feeling like and it was to say like that you could feel lonely hanging out with friends, and it's because more or less you're not in the same place as they are in regard to your relationship with God or something like that. Um, so I think like, oh, it's been really great being in like this corner to have people that are much, because a lot of the things that I've often felt out of step with the people that are in my immediate vicinity. Um, so it's good to have people where you can relate to that feeling of not having the right people with you. But yeah.
It
But yeah,
seems really powerful.
yeah,
Like it's how do we do? I started with Hezi pointing at fire, and I guess it was a midrash. I don't know what it's called, but there's this idea that God gave Adam stones to make fire, which tells us that you know tells us a lot, and it has something to do with also we get to participate. So,
yeah,
but yeah, it's maybe this it's to me it seems like this sense organ that we have that allows us to see how close or how far away we are to God and what God's will is for us that we have. And yeah, that's pretty powerful. And it's especially powerful if we're supposed to be doing God's will and God has a plan. So
yeah,
yeah, I was just trying to facilitate a space right here to try and do it. I feel like sometimes it's when I'm watching other people, I don't it doesn't feel as much in communion, but it was strange. I played Hezi doing that video and I felt it. So but yeah, that's what I'm trying to play with. I'm trying to play with this, figuring out when I am and when I am not doing God's will stuff. And it seems to include it's good to do it with other people, to be able to do it with other people and to be able to do it in increasingly challenging situations.
yeah. I think, yeah, but I kind of the thing has been very freeing in my life to move the emphasis of like what I'm supposed to be doing from like a negative to a positive. So instead of being like, don't mess up anymore, don't sin, whatever, don't be in this cycle of mistakes, to instead be like, well, what am I doing? And because then if you're doing things, then you don't have to worry about messing up or whatever. Or you may make mistakes or whatever, but I think the fear, I don't know. I guess it kind of clicked at some point that like whatever of these spiritual influences are, they have many tools at their disposal. They're almost as happy with people being indecisive and just inactive and on the sideline as they are with getting people to actually commit sins or whatever, and so the kind of path forward is just to do something, like whatever you can do. But sometimes, it's not very clear. And, I think like a lot of times, it's like if you look at Jesus, like he was always withdrawing to these quiet places and things like that. And it was, or like when he went to, like he couldn't do miracles in his own hometown or stuff like that. It's like you may just be alone if the people around you aren't ready for you to do what there is to be done. So, but I think putting the emphasis more on doing stuff and then not worrying about like, did I do it perfect or did I do the right thing or the wrong thing? Like doing something is better than doing nothing.
We might disagree. There's sometimes when I'm doing something and it's like, as the words come out of my mouth, I start feeling like the presence of God leave, and it's and that's a doing something that all of a sudden is like, oh, I'm messing up. I mean, that's what I'm trying to notice when that happens, when I'm starting to say, or maybe I made a video and it's like a prayer, should I release this? And it's like, I get some feedback on it sometimes, don't, this is bad. Like a recent one was I started trying to point out what a true Christian is, or a true Christian nation, or true Christian nationalism. And it's like, whew, I just got my butt handed to me when I was trying to go down that topic. And it's because I became the accuser. Like I really did. I became the Antichrist.
It's crazy how many times I have actually sat down and made like a video about something, maybe, and it was a little bit of like a hot take or something like that. And then like technical issues, like there was no sound or something. Like, wow, okay, I guess that was the sign to not go forward in that direction. But maybe, I mean, I would say maybe that, obviously we all have different personalities. Like my personality is very comfortable with like a wait and see and not do anything. And like, if I don't know what to do, like, especially like,
that sounds like the Jonah approach. Like God's going to keep knocking if you ignore him.
Well, not like that. Like, cause it's like, when I feel like God is telling me to do something, and like, as I've said in other places, like God's motivating me to do something that feels outside of my nature, outside of my comfort zone. And so I can tell, like, okay, that's the direction he wants me to go. So then it's like, all right, I'll try to make steady, small steps in that direction. But more, I'm just thinking, like, like one area is like, I think I'm just not really great at like interpersonal relations with like people. Like I often like not, I love the way that these online conversations are focused and direct, and it's like, okay, I can go, Gavin and I will have a serious conversation about something, and like we don't have to worry about like small talk or like because it's like you can't just go up to a random person or even one of your friends and be like, let's have a serious conversation about something. Like sometimes you might want to, or maybe that's like a need that you have, but it's, for me at least, it's very difficult to figure out how to get those things organically in relationships. Like even I say, like with my wife, I would tell her, like, she gets annoyed when I ask her questions about things, like, but I'm like, I'm just trying to like have conversation. I don't know what like, because she'll ask me to like help her do something around the house, and then I'll ask her a bunch of questions about it, and I'm like, I'm just trying to like be in a relationship here. Like I don't know what to do. Like I'm not trying to be annoying. This is just like awkward for me or whatever, and it's definitely that way with like.
You can't just start dancing and just do the fancy dance right in front of everybody.
I don't know. or like the other example would be like, when somebody like when something tragic happens in like somebody's life or whatever, I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to say or how I'm supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Like, and some people are like my wife is very much like my opposite in this way, where it's like she just knows like how to like she will just, because she'll just go up, she'll talk to people like, we go into stores, she'll like compliment the cashiers, and like start little conversations. And then if somebody seems like sad or something, just a stranger, she knows how to do the thing where it's like how to initiate a conversation that gets right to like that meaningful thing. And me, I'm like, oh, a guy that's like a coworker, or we're not really friends, but we aren't, but we talk, we're friendly, or I'm like, and then something like 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 a relative passes away or something, and I'm like, oh, sorry for your loss or whatever. Like, or it's like, and I'm like, I need, or it's like this thing of like, I know I'm supposed to say something, because like if I don't say anything, then that absence will be, that's its own statement in a way, or whatever, the lack of a statement. But I just am like, I don't, it's so unnatural feeling to me and weird. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this. So those are the instances where now I'm learning it's better for me to do something and feel awkward and do it poorly, because I'm trying to like be the person that grows in that area, rather than just to be my comfortable self, which would just be to be quiet and to just ignore it.
Yeah, that's like the idea of like if we're in old times and there's a church, I would like to go chop the wood and tend the fire, right? I want to help. I want to be there. But maybe I don't have words. Maybe so doing something can be I think what I meant to say earlier is I can say the wrong thing. I've done it many times, right? But it's oftentimes like if I can look around and just somehow know what to do, that's meaningful. Right? No words needed. I'm trying to get better at saying the right words, but it's nice to just be given. It's like, hey, this person needs a hug, or maybe they don't need to hear anything, but maybe it's nice to just sit there with them and hold their hand. I don't know. Obviously, that could get awkward in some situations, but it'd be great to be given that guidance. It'd be great if God, for example, would say, hey, this person could really use you just like sitting next to them and humming a good song or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Yeah, I understand the awkwardness of it. I definitely feel it. I went to a memorial recently. It's I tried to be there.
Well, it's interesting too, because like I know, like on my side of the things, like I've had people maybe say things that were awkward to me, but I never felt like any lingering, disdain for that person. Like, but it's hard to think like, why wouldn't other people treat me the same way? Like, because I'd be like, oh, that was funny. They said that in such a weird, awkward way, and it's just because they're an awkward person. But it was nice of them to try. Like, then,
could I not just tell them, hey, I'm not really good with words. I value our relationship and I want to be here to help. And so I'm afraid if I could say the wrong thing and say the thing that just would not be helpful, but I really want to be here for you. Something you just kind of be honest with how you're feeling and, how much you value their relationship and how much you want to help. Something like that.
What about when you don't really value their relationship though?
Yeah, that's so. Yesterday at the climbing gym, I was sitting there just relaxing. I had my leg up on my knee, and I started seeing. It's like these are all God's image. Like every single one, every child, every adult, all of I did the ones doing the things that it's like, why are they doing that? That kid's doing something dangerous and could have their back broken, and it's like, but it's they're all valuable. They're all it's. And I don't do that a lot. I don't sit there and just start just seeing how, it was very rare for me to actually enter into that kind of worldview where I'm seeing everyone and everything as like, these extensions of God,
Mm. Yeah, I mean, that's interesting too, even because I feel like that's something where I can. It's weird, like, and even I would say, like, I'd say this is like a failing. I feel like, as even within my own family, it's like where my thoughts are and my love for, like, my wife and my children is, you know, um, in such a high place. But then even that, it's like I don't feel like I'm adequately communicating to them how I feel, and um, and it's tough too, because it's like, okay, talking to Gavin and thinking about, my wonderful life and my wonderful family. But then when I get home, my wife might very well be very stressed out and angry because the children are misbehaving, and it's going to be all chaos. And it's not really the time for, like, warm hugs and kisses all of a sudden or whatever, like, especially if it's like I need to go talk to this child that's been hitting her sister or something. I don't know. Like, what am I getting?
Yeah, I've had some moments recently with the kids where it's like, yeah, there's just, bad spirits. I come into it. I'm getting better at not, like, just catching it, because it's all contagious, so I'm getting better at not catching it. And then I'm trying to love them carefully. And then I'll fail. Like, it might be like temporarily resolved, and then 3 minutes later it starts getting back in there. And then I've had a few successes recently where I look at it and I'm like, wow, that's unusual that somehow, somehow I was able to say the thing that totally, like, kind of like resolve the situation for the day. It'll come back the next day, but it's very unusual. So it's like there, yeah, I think there's often a thing we can do or say that is very potent and powerful, that can be helpful. I mean, it depends on the age of the kid. It works well when it's my 8-year-old. It doesn't work so well when it's the one that's 3 years old. It's a little harder there for me. I just started coaching 6 and 7-year-olds, and it went well last night. But I had one day, like, I'm sitting there with my foot on the ball trying to talk, and I got 2 kids trying to kick the ball, and I got one hitting me in my private part. And it's like, it's a mess. So yeah, I'm really getting stretched. But
yeah,
I know it's tough. I do have hope that there's a way of, like, getting closer to God and being able to somehow say and do the thing what God would have, and then it's like it seems miraculous when it happens. So
yeah. Well, I think, the other thing too is, like, I'm trying to think, about, like, there was obviously, like, with my own dad, it's like, our relationship is great now, and it was, it's funny because relationships and stuff, they're never like, there's no, like, smooth progressions or whatever. It's always like ups and downs or whatever. And uh, and even when like, it's funny too, like, with kids, like, growing up, and, like, my kids are still, the oldest is 6, and so but we've had experiences as teachers, my wife and I both, and, like, middle schoolers and stuff like that, and it's like middle schoolers are not, like, in between maturity levels of, like, kids and adults. They are, like, both simultaneously. It's like, in this moment they are as mature as, like, a grown adult, and will talk to you in, like, a rational, reasonable way about something. And then the next minute, they are like a toddler throwing a temper tantrum.
I
And
think we do that too. I think adults do that too. I think we have it.
Well,
We
that's
can be
true.
so
That is
childish.
true. Yeah, that is the way. And so, like, I think, like, one thing I really valued about my dad in the way he raised us is that, like, he would go overboard, and his he would blow his temper, and he would do, um, it wasn't good, but then he would always come back and apologize, and he would admit that he had failures and that he had weaknesses and things like that. And it's like, I don't want it to be like, you could also go too far where you're making that an excuse, because sometimes it is like, I have to, like, act like I'm the adult in control, even though I don't necessarily feel I'm in control, or I'm in control of just a scenario that I'm manufacturing just for the purpose of like giving this child a way to interact with whatever's happening. It's not like, because it's not like, because that's the thing. I mean, it's like, you put like punishments in place or consequences or things like that. And, some of it's like, it's kind of arbitrary or whatever, maybe, but it's like, because you're not really, you're not trying to teach them like a lesson about like, I don't know, how important it is to always like eat your dinner without complaining, but you're trying to teach them about just the way that you're supposed to like be in the world. Because it's like, whatever. If you're grown up, you can complain about your dinner all you want, that's fine. You can, that's not a thing that's inherently bad, but it's bad when you do it every night. And like, we're trying to have a nice dinner and you refuse to try new foods or whatever. So
on the topic of like trying to create routes, like route setting for climbers, and like I call back to like Luke and Teddy Rumpskin and that kind of conversation. It's like I want to. I just remember going fishing with my father, and him saying, "Remember to pack your food and your water," and then forgetting to pack the food and the water, and then being very hungry, and like saying, "I'm starving." And he's like, "You're not starving," and he'd let that go for the pain, the suffering go. And then eventually he's like, "Are you hungry?" So, yeah. And then he whips out like a watermelon, which I didn't even like watermelon. And he cuts up a watermelon and hands it to me. And it's the best watermelon I've ever, it's amazing. And so there's an aspect of being able to be hungry and being able to sleep on the rocks and to be cold and shivering, to then be able to have that contrast to appreciate that. And so children who, when we're spoiled, we don't have the contrast of what it's like to be without our mattress and without our food and the food, our favorite food. And so it's something that it's good to, I imagine taking the kids out camping, and then age appropriateness, giving increasing amounts of responsibility while providing a safety net and allowing there to be pain and suffering, natural consequences, things like that. And yeah, that's the basic idea. And I do it. I have done it, as a father, but I have to be patient with it too.
Yeah, it's interesting too. I'm thinking too, like, because there's like this kind of thing, especially people of our age, like that are really resentful about like our parents' generation, like the like okay boomer thing, or just talking like and different people like talking about like boomers are the worst and all this stuff, and but I think there's this unique thing where it's like we're always preparing our children for an unknown future. And in some ways I'm coming to see that like our parents' generation, they're not understanding so much of some of the problems that we're going through because they didn't go through it, but they also got set up kind of unfairly, in that like their parents went through a lot of hardship and struggle and really were able to spoil them essentially, and like in a lot of ways, not just from parent to child, but like just the way that like it's like if you look at the history of like wealth and stuff like that, it's like our parents' generation like lucked out where it was like education was cheap and it got you a good job, and jobs could provide houses and cars and vacations and retirement savings and all these things that really, in the big view of things, it's like that was a very unique period. But then they're the ones that grew up thinking this is normal, and then they're trying to tell our generation like, just do this, this, and this. And you have
I mean, the only thing I'd add there is that it's probably a pattern that's eternal, and that there's like the ups and downs, and it can be within a line, a generation, or a nation, or groups. And so just because this is the story of your parents doesn't mean it's the story of mine, but it could have been my great grandparent or something, So, or it could, so I'm just going to toss that in there, but it rings true. It's just the dynamic may be like out of sync depending on where you're at and the transitions between over the generations.
Well, yeah, I mean, because it's even like if you think about it, it's like, okay, so you have like a Great Depression generation that really taught, like, that learned the importance of like frugality and and working hard and taking a responsibility. And then their kids is like the World War II generation, where those hard lessons allowed them to succeed in a very important way, as far as like winning the war and everything that went through that. And then they passed those lessons on to their kids, but the environment was so different for their kids that like the effort that was like, you need this effort to make sure you survive. Well, like when they put that level of effort into a more fertile environment, everybody became like really wealthy instead of just like surviving. And so it kind of created an unrealistic expectation. But but yeah, it's true. Like every generation needs to realize like that you can't, like there's a core of wisdom of like principles of things that you can gain from your parents' generation, but you're gonna have to like rework it and retranslate it into the current situation because it's always different in some way.
Right.
We have not had like, I think that's the thing, like, we always want to kind of look back at history and think like everything was just fine until like these revolutionary moments happen, but it's really like just change is constant all the time and things are always different, and we just only notice it when it gets to like a tipping point where like the name of a nation changes or something. But yeah,
it feels like we're at a tipping point. In my opinion, it's like there's a ripeness, like like that's a fruit analogy or metaphor. There's a ripeness so you can have these ripeness events throughout history in which you do have change, and then the kinds of change that can happen there's a lot of varieties, and some are bloodless and some are with blood, and then it's yeah, it'd be and there's some paths that are more preferable than others. So yeah, I see our situation to be like that, like as a species.
Yeah,
That's what they call it, the meta crisis, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Yeah, I mean that's like whatever, like when Malcolm and Simone talk about like a monoculture, and being like there's been such this big push for like some kind of a uniformity to be pushed on everything, and then people are all reacting that in different ways, and it is like, yeah, so when a fruit becomes ripe, that's when the seeds come out, but the seeds, you know like depending on the fruit, like some fruits aren't true to seed or whatever, so the seeds may produce different kinds of fruit than the fruit that they came out of. And yeah, I think that we're probably in a place where there's a lot of different seeds of movements and cultures and things being planted, and some of them will be good and some of them won't be. It's but it's also figuring out the kind of seed that you have, and what the environmental needs for that seed are, because that's kind of what varies. A seed that would flourish in one environment may fail in another. So
This communion thing seems really important. So like Jacob Faccirecci had the defense against dark arts, and then Chris Picau had mixed it. So and then put it to music. But one of the things he said is, to not be as abrasive as Jacob can be. I want to call him the what do you call the Scarlet King snake. He looks like the poisonous coral snake, but he can be so abrasive. But what he's trying to say in a gentle way would be that we don't think for yourself. It's not good that we think for ourselves. And so doing this communion and being able to practice thinking together is a skill. And so that's, I mean, I'm firsthand kind of experiencing the benefits of doing that. So, and when we do things like this, I think we have the opportunity for that to happen. And I don't think we've been like, I don't think people are, I might be just biased because I haven't been doing it. But I'm not sure how much skill there is, broadly speaking, and throughout the world at this time. I'm not sure how much skill there is at doing this communion, this thinking together stuff. So,
yeah, I think. Well, it's probably similar to like what Lance was saying about there are these people on farms somewhere that have all this competency and skill that seems to be missing from like the public facing side of the culture. And I think probably it's the same thing too with kind of these relational and community kind of skills. They probably just don't, they're not, they don't fit like the economy of attention that, because there's more profit in people being divided and individualized and all that stuff. Um, so, yeah, I'm sure like as a whole, our society is lacking those things, but I don't think they have disappeared. And I think it's okay if we, figure out new things together like this, because doing this, it's interesting. Like, I think there's so much potential even still. Like, we've only really started scratching the surface, like with our little corner and stuff. But having like, I don't know, people talk about like online communities, like they're not really communities and all that stuff. But I think once they become more centered around like common goals rather than just common interests, I think they can be real communities, like and like there's a lot of potential for that sort of thing, because I've been absent from a lot of the stuff because I've been really trying to work hard on writing. Basically, I guess I kind of came to the point where I have almost enough stuff that I could say it's like make a little book, like self-publish for my tectonic school idea. And at least that way, when I have a product, then I'll be able to like more or less try to start making the connections and things like that. But like, I mean, to me, it seems really, really obvious that like, if you were going to do in previous eras, this wouldn't make sense. But now that we have like the internet as a way to connect people, it's very easy for like people who have a small business to say, in any town in America, I have a spot for one person to come work for me, and then find some other person from any part in the country who says, I will come work for you. And like, you just repeat that all across America or whatever. And, it would really solve a lot of the problems, because, it doesn't have to be building an institution. Like, we just need the framework to connect people. Like, so that was kind of my goal with the thing, because there's always this uneven distribution. Like, there's places where like, it's like if you want like to find good musicians, it's like, okay, go to Nashville. There's way more good musicians than like anywhere else, but there's a smaller number of people who can work as professional musicians in that city. Even though there's more like jobs of professional musicians in Nashville than like anywhere else, the amount of professional musicians that have flocked there to chase those few jobs is like, way disproportionate. So it's like, okay, but there's also like a bunch of like churches or whatever, say like churches all over the country who need one musician, and maybe they could pay that musician some sort of a living wage. You know, we can figure out how to filter the talent and, you know, can spread out the resources with the needs like that. I think that seems like the thing that kind of these technological advancements are really easy to do is to plug in people with places where they're needed.
Yeah, it requires that there be buy-in from people who will use the thing that's going to be built, right? Mm-hmm. And then, but then you get into the whole building of the thing itself that would facilitate what you're talking about, and then you still run into the same problem, right? It's like the you know, there's a level of proficiency in all these aspects and building the thing that would then help in a you know, you're suffering from the same problem that you are trying to solve, and so you would want to try and dog food. There's things like I would have suggestions, and I would, you know, suggest, yeah, and then I would want to participate, and I would want to have, if it's a good idea this work, or if it's a good effort, or that it would be used and not ignored, right? It's that. So yeah, I mean, I'm in the space of being able to create the thing you want to be able to connect the musician to the church, but yeah. It's you know, there's it it will suffer. The building of that thing will suffer from the same problems, right?
Yeah. Well, I think some of the answer to that is also just to not hold these things as being too precious. You know, because I think about it, it's like so I do haven't talked to him in a while, but one of my friends from back home was interested in my ideas. He wanted to help me out with stuff, and you know, like I said, it's kind of tough because I'm not really at the position at this exact moment where I can say, okay, this is what I need from somebody else to do stuff. But it's like, okay, Discord is free and it would work fine up until a certain point to get this thing going. And then it's like, okay, so let's just do that, and then we'll cross the bridge when we get there. You know, like, right. So like maybe maybe I don't know, 500 people or something. It's like 500 people you could plug in, get it working pretty easily just by using free resources. And then maybe it's to say, okay, and then maybe we could split it up like regionally or something, and be like, okay, well now we just need to have a Discord for each state or something, and somebody else can be in charge of running that one for their own state or whatever. Or you could build some bigger thing, but you know, it's not but you know, I'm thinking like the buy-in only needs to be one business and one student to start, you know. So and then it's like, well, it's already sort of successful at some point, you know.
Right.
And it can grow organically, because if it works good, then it should be able to work, you know, grow organically or whatever, you know.
Right.
So,
well, there's this is where, you know, people might wonder, is like, are we part of an online community, and our online community is real? And I think there's this skill at, you know, what Vervaeke calls dialogos. What I'm thinking is communion, which is being able to listen and love. Like, this is the thing that has to exist everywhere. Like, even so, if you want to say that community is something that's around a goal, you're still going to want to have this kind of more fundamental skill of of loving and communion and dialogos. You know, the fruits of the Holy Spirit embodied. You know,
yeah,
you're going to want those things, and you know, there's. Yeah, so in a way, I feel like we're like what we're doing is important, and then it carries over and into everything else as well. Whether it's your family as a little community, or your neighborhood, or tectonic school, or any of this. So yeah, I mean, the thing is once you, if you end up with scaling problems, because I agree with you. Like, you can start with Discord, but you're going to bump in, and if you end up with scaling problems, good. We talk about this at work. If we'll build it and use what we have now, and if we end up with scaling problems, that means we succeeded, right? And we can solve that problem too. But I mean, you're going to end up with people who have conflicting interests, and as far as like different demands based on life choices that are also shaped by the people that you live with, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, and the kind of main thing that makes it go is like, obviously, because I could not promise somebody like this is the way to like the ultimate financial success or whatever. But the whole point of it is kind of to shift, like, I guess, our thinking of like our economy from like a symbolic economy, because money is symbolic, you know, it represents time and work and things like that. And so, but when we just make like money itself thing, then it's like, oh, being a pornographer is a much better pursuit than being a plumber because you will make more money. And it's like, well, money doesn't give you
just as messy, but
yeah. money doesn't give you any the amount of money only indicates the amount of money that's the only difference that it really indicates, you know. And so the kind of the buy-in I would think is to say like, okay, let's like maybe you move to a small town where cost of living is lower. Work, you won't get paid as much as you could make in a big city, but you will be able to, you know, you'll be okay because you can afford the lower cost of living. And then, you know, you get there already, like, you know, the idea kind of pre-packaged is like you're going to be plugged into like a church, and then maybe like a family that could host you, you know, take you on to board with, like as a young man or something like that. So it's like you have an employer who's supposed to mentor you, a church that maybe is the same one you go to, or you know, or it's another one that's affiliated or something, and you have like a family. So it's like you have a base, and then maybe, you know, and there's other things to be like, okay, part of the requirement is like take some kind of like a workout, like a gym thing or something. So maybe you take like a martial arts class in the town or something, like whatever's there, you know. And it's like, okay, there you have another place where you can like meet people. And it's kind of saying it's like it's to sell like,
don't forget
okay,
paintball. Don't forget paintball.
oh yeah, for sure. But the idea is, you know, so you sell like a whole package. It's like, okay, it's not instead of like you just needing to find a lump sum of money and then figure out how to fit in housing, friends, food, you know, recreation, you know, spiritual health and all this stuff, like having as much of that stuff basically like pre-packaged and just being like, here you go. Like because what you already have is we already have a community or some semblance of a community, and we think that you could help strengthen it, and you would be an important part to, you know, you put that person in there, and then they have a connection with all these other things, and then the whole community is better and stronger. And so then it's like, well, then more people might want to plug in too. So
right.
So I mean, but it's definitely kind of like shifting it, like a different lifestyle is really, you know.
Yeah. So there's my problem is like, so I'll have a vision for how perhaps like you and like everyone, and maybe I have an imagination where people can be integrated into like some grand narrative, grand story. And then, but I don't know necessarily how to communicate it effectively. Such that, for example, you and your wife and your children would want to move to this place, or I think I've gotten pretty good at communicating this to my wife and my children. But it's still, the children might object, to say the least. But yeah, I'm interested in this, in the pursuit of this. I think that there's obstacles, like, for example, like how many people are spread out across how many Discord servers, and like how should you even run a Discord server? You're talking about a Discord server, and like, can you run a Discord server that has 300 core members who are interested in actually investing into it, right? Into the pursuit, the path, the good path, and contributing, collaborating, cooperating. So you've got, on the one hand, you've got maybe someone like Mark Lefevre who's like saying, "Hey, I'll be a leader," and then maybe you have a Jacob Vaccarecci saying, "I'll be a leader," and or maybe he's saying, "Paul, be a leader." And so then there's a question: it's like, like, how is leadership determined? How does change happen? How did our decisions made? Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's my goal, is to just let it be totally decentralized. That's kind of why I'm thinking that a book has to be the thing, because it's like, I'm going to make a book. So you can get money by buying the book from me, but that's a very small one-time investment, and then if I can build a little bit of this infrastructure to start, that will be what I can manage, that's fine if you want to join. But if it's like, oh, you get on our Discord and everything's in Texas and you're in New England, maybe it's better for you to start your own thing. And that might require you kind of get boots on the ground and go knocking on doors and things like that. But as far as I'm concerned, like,
or move.
Yeah. Well, whatever, like, I'm not worried about it. Like, I just want to do the thing of, basically, like, the whole point of an apprenticeship kind of thing is, I can't necessarily teach you how to do everything you will ever have to encounter, but I'm going to give you the basic skills and the basic set of tools, and then you can use it.
I have a young child that just came through. I'm going to let you roll. Keep going.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. So that's what I want to make, is a set of tools for people to have, and a basic set of skills, and basically to say, like, discipleship tools and skills, and then because the assumption would be, okay, somebody already knows how to teach a trade. Somebody who works in a trade. So it's like, I could teach somebody how to do my job, but I also want to, at the same time, teach them, like, how to be an adult and a part of a community. So,
I just want to chime in, like, there's something to subsidiarity. There's something to communion and thinking together, and there's something to, like, hard. There will be hard decisions, but But yeah, I mean, you start off, you grow organically, you try to do your thing and start, and people can help. We try to communicate it. And, as the hard decisions emerge, we try to figure it out. So, but it sounds cool. Like, I'm definitely interested in support this. I mean, this sounds to me like, broadly speaking, it's like training and education combined with, an outlet by which so not only we learn and teach, but we also are able to use that in practical ways to become a tecton, a builder, a worker, a creator. So
yeah. Well, and kind of the thing too is just, it's more so like, because I'm starting it from this thing of, like, okay, this is an area that I have some knowledge about, and because like I stumbled into it a little bit later or whatever, it was kind of like, if I had known up front, like, oh, this is a good skill to have, like, I had to struggle to find my path. So now that I found this path that I think is pretty good, it's like, hey, maybe my path will help you. Come on my path. But other people could do radically different things with the concept and the principles. But it's more just about, like, what is in front of you here. And some of this is really, the internet can help us find, like, the people that are focused, but also there are people that are locally available that maybe they don't, because this is the thing, like, being like a youth pastor or whatever, it's like, okay, these are the kids that I have, and they may not care about the things that I care about, but I can learn what they care about. And
let me just suggest something. So, containers. I suggest modularized containers. So what that allows you to do is it allows you to pick up and relocate. And I think that by doing that, it becomes easier to scale, easier to pivot and be flexible and to adapt. And so the pattern of the container is something that's very useful in my line of work, and it's everywhere. and it facilitates this stuff.
Yeah.
And so containers for your fruit trees, containers for your food, for your greenhouses, your homes, your vehicles. You should be able to throw it on a train, throw it on a pickup truck or a semi truck, on a ship, on a big old boat out in the ocean. It's like modularized containers. That's what I vote for.
That's why I say tents over temples.
Tents over temples, exactly.
Yeah. So, but that's kind of the thing, just because, everybody with their pie in the sky idea is like, if we can get enough people elected in this thing and they can appoint the right Supreme Court justices, and then we can like shift the nation, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, that's really hard. But like, maybe you could, I don't know.
What's interesting about
pick up trash in your neighborhood or something with kids. Like that would be like a thing. It's like, hey, like, I'm going to teach these kids that you can take responsibility for part of your neighborhood that's not your private property. And that's a great lesson while you're spending time with them, That
might be a good place to land the plane. Go pick up some trash with your kids.
Yeah. Okay.
Very practical.
Yeah. I'm all about the practical.
My church has a Serve app, and my wife looked at the Serve app and it's like, what's happening? And it's more like ground up. I'm like, we can just go pick up trash one day and let everyone on the Serve app know where we'll be and what we're doing. And so there's picking up trash sounds like a good idea. I'm a fan. It's a good way to put in effort, put in work, be of service while attempting to be in communion and connect and establish and build relationships. Right.
Yeah.
It's good. Anything else you want to add, Michael? Girl Dad Tech Time.
Yeah. Now, I'm gonna put some stuff out about wrestling. I've been going on a deep dive on that since Paul talked to the guy. So that's what there will be more of that to come. Hopefully in the future. So
with some kayfabe.
Yeah.
With some kayfabe.
There's something, man. It's just like, it's super interesting. Like I've been
on the same topic, Michael, just to be transparent. I was talking to Kim about it yesterday. I'm starting to see that we're all doing the LARP and the kayfabe, and we're just pretending like we're not an extension of God. And it's like, and because I was able to witness my heart transform, and I'm just like, what happened? Like, I'm a different person. It's like, I'm able to see that happen a couple of times now. It's like,
what, did you watch wrestling when you were a kid?
I laughed at it. When I saw it, I'm like, this is a joke. Like when I watched it, I was like, I never got into it, but I know Hulk Hogan. I played a few of the video games. I'm aware of The Rock. This is why I call Jacob the Scarlet King Snake Facioretty. That's his wrestling name in my mind.
So I'm, because I was trying to figure out exactly, like, basically, like, from what I remember, like, I must have been like really young when I was watching it, because we're the same age, and like, because I was like remembering like Hulk Hogan and like the Ultimate Warrior and like Andre the Giant or whatever, Sergeant Slaughter, and then like looking back, it's like this is like I was probably like 5 or 6, I don't know, maybe, and then like at some point where you're like, oh, it's fake, I don't care about it anymore. but it's interesting because I've been going back and like those are all the people that I remember and stuff, and so then like looking up like their stories and their biographies and stuff. It's funny because they're all Christians now. They all like, but it's definitely like, it's interesting the effect that like being a persona like has on the people. Sometimes it was like bad, sometimes it was good. Like it's just a lot of really interesting stuff.
It's mixed in with the whole idea of actors who act in movies too, and you got Heath Ledger maybe got carried away as the Joker, and you got some of these actors that just put on the character and stay in character 24/7, like to really.
Well, it's like before like the internet age, it's like that's what they had to do. It was like whenever you go on an airplane, like you're representing the company. You're not whatever your name is. You're this character, and it's like you have to like maintain that all the time, and it's crazy.
That's the idea of dying to yourself and allowing Christ to live in you. It's kind of an interesting thing going on there. It's with real world consequences and your own experience and everyone around you. Pretty wild. Like making Jesus king is it's a very powerful.
Yeah.
So yeah, I look forward to your professional wrestling kayfabe takes.
All right.
Thank you,
Cool.
Michael.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye, audience. Break through the fourth wall one day. Bye-bye.